Hello and welcome back to Fire to Fork. Today we are on the beach and we are going to make one of my favourite things in the world to eat, pizza. Now, I have to warn you before we get into this, I'm quite opinionated when it comes to pizza, probably more so than I deservedly should be. But that's how it is. I'm pretty passionate about how pizza gets made. I have some pet hates and I have some sort of rules that I think people should definitely abide by. So let's see how we go. Now, I'm not ready to eat pizza yet. It's still only about 1 o'clock. So the reason I've started now is because I want to make some dough, get it all ready, and be ready to eat for sunset. So first thing to do is just that, make your own dough. Now, you start with a high quality, high gluten baker's flour. Now I've got self-raising flour. You can just get normal flour, add your baking soda, but I've just gone the lazy option and got it already in there. So next step is to grab all the ingredients, which is basically like the wet ingredients, and I'll grab them out now. All right, first up, 380 mils of water. I love these little pots because they've actually got a measuring thing inside, which saves me a heap of screwing around. Now I'm just going to chuck that on. I've got a little stick fire just going behind me. I'm just going to get it warm, not hot. That's been on there for like 45 seconds and it's nice and warm. So I'm just going to grab some honey. So I'm going to use about 3 teaspoons of honey. A sachet of dry yeast, 7-gram sachet. You can use fresh yeast, of course, and look, I'm no baker, but this is a pizza dough recipe that is actually very good, and I've done several times and has, well, for several years, and it's worked really well. My mum came up with it, and she is bloody good at this stuff. She is a chef, and we had a pizza oven at home growing up, so we did a lot of this. Some salt. Now, be generous with the salt. I don't actually have very much salt in here, so I'm just going to use all of it. I was so unhappy with the amount of salt I had, I've just added a tiny bit of soy. I don't know, it's probably going to make it a weird colour, but we'll see how it goes. It's still an experiment. And then a bit of olive oil. So 2 teaspoons olive oil. Just mix all that together for a little bit. And then you just want that yeast to start reacting with the sugar of the honey. So I'll just leave that for a sec, and while I'm doing that, I'm gonna grab out my dry ingredients. Dry ingredients are 3.5 cups of self-raising flour. Now, very, very blatant merch plug. My cups are 1 cup. Well, the old cups are. I'm not sure. The new cups which are coming, and oh God, I really hope they're here by the time this video comes out. They might be a little bit smaller because I've had a new manufacturer, because Corona. So we'll see how we go. If you got one of the old ones, you don't need to carry a measuring cup. 3.5. Okay, so I've left that for a few minutes. Now I'm just going to pour it in. Yes, I'm using my washing up bowl, but it's clean. And to answer one of the comments, no, it's not a King's bowl. I got this from Anaconda. Oh, and excuse my dodgy awning setup. It's pretty rudimentary. It's just so that there's not a giant big jet of light coming in sideways here. And sorry about the flapping noise. So as with all doughs, you can follow the recipe to the letter, but you may always need to add a tiny bit of flour or a tiny bit of water if it's just not quite the consistency you want. And that is exactly what's happened here. Okay, so once that's sort of grabbable, you can take it out and give it a quick knead on your surface. It's the beauty of having a stainless steel surface. All right. Then I'm gonna give that a quick wash because that's what I'm gonna, no, I'm not gonna use that, sorry. I'm getting all confused. Okay, oh God, incoming Fred. That's not the right one. I need to drink out of that one. Oh well. We've just got a top here. Cover in olive oil. So that the dough doesn't stick to it. And sort of do the same with the dough a bit. So top of that with olive oil. And then leave that guy in a sort of a warm environment. Now it's 30 odd degrees today, so that's fine. I'm just gonna leave it underneath my car. If you don't have a big enough Tupperware container, just use like any old bowl or bucket or whatever with a bit of Glad wrap over the top and it'll work perfectly. Yeah, get all the dough off your fingers. I'm gonna wipe all this down. And then I've got about 3 hours. So there's a beach there, there's a little creek there, and Fred's pretty keen for a swim, so I reckon I'm gonna join him, maybe have a cheeky cup of tea at the same time. So you also might be wondering how to make this a gluten-free version. Well, it's easy. Get yourself a gluten-free base. Nothing else in this recipe is going to have gluten in it. So get yourself a gluten-free base and you'll be absolutely fine. If you want a cheap substitute to a gluten-free base, I recommend a piece of cardboard. Has about the same what's it called? Nutritional value and tastes very, very similar. So yeah, cardboard is definitely a good alternative. Now I am going to have a nice tin of tea and go for a swim. See ya. Okay, so we're a couple of hours down. Had a really nice afternoon actually. Just been sitting out in the sun, watching the water, went for a couple of swims. Fred's been chasing sticks. It's been just a great way to spend an afternoon. So next step, as you can see, this is, by the way, this is about tripled in size. The next step is of course sauce. Now you can of course buy sauce. I just don't recommend it. If you have to buy something, I would buy like a passata or something like that. I would never, don't use those little sachets of the pizza, whatever it is, tomato concentrate sort of stuff. They're crap. Oh, here we go. Sorry, just trying to find my olive oil. About a tablespoon of olive oil in the bottom of your pan, and then I have my knife back. This is so good to have this back. I didn't have it for a few weeks, and it was killing me. But it's back. I've got it. The good old Osprey knife. Unfortunately, they're sold out in about 2.5 days. When they finally put them back on, but so good to have it back. I'm just gonna give this guy a bit of a crush and then dice him up nice and small. Now you see I've lit a couple of fires. You don't need 2 fire pits, you really just need a ground fire and a fire grate. But I've got 2 fire pits and it's going to make it a lot easier when we actually cook the pizza, because I'm going to have one with charcoal in it and one with beautiful jarrah in it. So dice it up nice and small, throw it in here and then chuck it on the heat. So basically you just want to do that until it's slightly browning. Okay, while I'm waiting for that, I'm just going to chop up some basil. Not tons, just sort of, I don't know. Then to go in there next is a very dented can of diced tomatoes. Get a good quality one. That onion is now brown, so well done, mate. Chuck those tomatoes in. I'm going to leave that for a sec. Let these cook down a bit. Basically, you want the tomatoes to keep cooking until they don't taste and smell raw. That'll take about, I don't know, 6-7 minutes. All right, it's been on there for about 4 minutes. So throw the basil in and, oh, wrong one. A bit of cracked pepper. Now this is optional, but I like to throw a little bit of dried oregano in there, just a little bit. You don't want to overpower it. You know, half a teaspoon. Hello darkness, my old friend. And my audio gear has failed once again. Well done me. Well, actually it has nothing to do with the audio gear and everything to do with the user. That's 2 videos in a row where I've failed to use my audio gear correctly. So yeah, I think I need to sort my shit out. And I'm down in Perth at the moment, so big shout out to One Off the Wood, my mates have the podcast, for lending me their microphone to do this voiceover. Anyway, let's get back to the cooking. So all I'm doing here is stirring it up for a few minutes so it doesn't taste sort of raw. And if you've tasted pasta sauce before, you'll know what I mean. It shouldn't taste really, really cooked. It shouldn't taste like a sort of a pasta sauce. It should taste slightly sort of tangy because it will be cooked again with the pizza. Now I'm going to do this pizza in 2 different techniques. I'm going to make 2 pizzas. One is going to be with a single camp oven, the other one's going to be with 2 camp ovens. And I'll get into that in more detail later on because honestly explaining it verbally is just not going to do it justice. So let's get to it. Okay, method number 1. Now I've adjusted everything here. As usual, links to everything I use in the description below. Also as usual, half of the stuff is sold out because every time I seem to put a link up, it seems to sell out. So, I mean, awesome for the companies involved, but not so awesome for the people who want the stuff. So, get in fast is the moral of that story. Putting a little bit of flour down, get a little nug of dough. Now, I'm only getting a little nug because I'm only going to make a very small pizza. Number 1, there's only one of me here. And number 2, it has to fit. Oh, I'm doing this all upside down because that's what I'm doing later. Okay, hold on. It has to fit in the bottom of this very small camp oven. Now I have a bigger, wider camp oven, a Baduri oven, which I would ordinarily use for this, but what I'm kind of doing is showing you how you can do it in a normal camp oven. Now, it's one thing to, oh, by the way, don't use a rolling pin if you can avoid it. If you really suck at handling dough, then you can use a rolling pin. But I highly recommend practicing stretching it out with your hands. So you kind of push it out, stretch it out. It will get little holes in it like this. It's okay, just fold them over. What I'm really useless at is getting a round pizza dough. Now the reason you don't want to squash this too much is that you will lose all those beautiful little air bubbles that you see in a nice wood-fired pizza. So this is going to be super thin, because I like a thin pizza. Okay, that is, oh, not very round, but good enough. Bloody thin. Problem is, you've got a pizza in there and you want to get it out at the end. It's nearly impossible because it's all the way down there. So you get it and you try and put a spatula in that folds over it itself. So there's a solution to all of that. And that is, you grab baking paper and aluminium foil. So aluminium foil is like your sling. And you get that guy, put it down there into the bottom of your camp oven, and then curl the edges there, then get a bit of baking paper, put that in the bottom of your camp oven, then you want to throw some semolina in there. You don't have to do this, but it will make your life easier, and it kind of helps the bottom of the pizza. So there's semolina on the bottom there. Get him in there. I don't know if this pizza is actually too thin, but we'll find out. Bit of sauce. Yes, it's chunky. No, it's not perfect, but it'll work perfectly well. Now I get opinionated. So firstly, the number of, or the quantity of toppings, not necessarily number, but quantity. Less is more. Always less is more. If you pile a pizza on that's heavy and thick, you're just going to, it's not going to be crispy, it's going to be soggy, it's going to be crap. Eat less but good quality ingredients. You don't need 12 ingredients on a pizza. In fact, it'll be crap. So I'm using a little bit of really nice fresh mozzarella, and I'm gonna just dot that around. Now, it doesn't have full coverage, that's okay. Next step is cacciatore. Now, cacciatore is Italian. Chorizo is Spanish. We're making Italian pizza. Pizza is Italian. Therefore, you want the Italian hot sausage. Pepperoni is kind of an American word for cacciatore, and it's fine, but a proper cacciatore is going to be much, much nicer. So all I'm going to put on there is mozzarella, cacciatore, and then when I'm done, I'm going to add some fresh basil. Now I'm going to throw the edge of that in there, lid on. Not too much heat, that's moved up nice and high. We want about probably 70-30 heat, so 70% on top, 30% underneath. Get my new big welding gloves, which by the way, thank you so much to Owen, who sent me these. Mate, you're an absolute legend. These are the best welding gloves I've ever used. They're really, really good. Very impressive. I'll put the type of welding gloves in the description below. You still can't just sit there and hold on to a big chunk of charcoal, but they're not warping and shitting themselves like my normal ones do. That shouldn't take very long. We'll just keep an eye on it. Alrighty, I think we're on here. So, other glove. Check it out. Fire to fork. Owen did that. Good on you, mate. Okay. Oh! Yep. That took about 6 or 7 minutes. Oh, look at that. Lifts out so easily. Semolina brings it off the baking paper really easily. Well, that base, you could do with a tiny bit more on the base. So that's easy. Just throw it back on the baking paper. Baking paper on the alfoil into the camp oven. And then I'm just not even going to put anything on top, I'm just going to throw it straight in. See how this goes this time. It's got a little bit more rigidity. It's not sand, it's semolina. Does look exactly like sand though. Yeah, that's looking better. Now, I actually think my base is slightly too thin, which I never thought I'd say because I love a thin base, but this was probably like a 1.5 mil thick. I like a little bit of fresh basil on top. If you put that on before, it's just gonna cook and burn. And I also like, oh man, my tailgate's such a mess. Something I didn't even bring out, hold on. It's a little bit of chopped chili. Even though it's spicy cacciatore, I still just love fresh chili. There's a beautiful flavour to it, and I'm not worried about heat. I'm pretty asbestos tongued. Okay. Oh, that's so good. Now bear in mind, this is my first pizza. You never get the first pizza as well as you'd like, as well cooked as you'd like. It's always the third and fourth that are like really good. It's like a pancake. The first pancake always sucks. It's science. Okay. Let's have a, make sure there's a bit of chili on there. Underneath, yep, we're all good. Still a touch too thin. Oh. That is a very bloody good pizza. I probably could have left it on there for another 2 minutes on the base, but I'm nitpicking there to say that's not. I'm so sorry I had camera issues. My camera just didn't record the last clip. It ran out of battery and then didn't save it for some reason. So what I've got here is the lid of my camp oven turned upside down, the small camp oven, which is there, and then I've thrown my big baduri over the top, loaded it with coals, and I've made exactly the same pizza. Which is actually now ready. So the idea behind this is that because there's a big gap between this big baduri base and the small camp oven lid, it lets the smoke in, so it tastes more like a wood-fired pizza. I've never actually done this technique before, but I've just tried it, and gotta say, I think I've just nailed it. Okay, that can go in there. Oh. There's some GoPro footage of how I did it, so at least I'll play that over it now. But one thing I also wanted to say is about toppings. Now, I haven't shown you anything new in terms of pizza toppings, like different ingredients or anything. It's mozzarella and bloody cacciatore on this. What you need to do is use good quality ingredients. So you'll notice the cacciatore I've got big chunks of fat, big chunks of meat. It's absolutely delicious. The other thing is, do not put cheese on top of your toppings. You put a small amount of toppings on and you do not put cheese on. If you put cheese on, it makes your toppings soggy. They bake and they steam and they don't go crispy. I mean, this cacciatore's got beautiful little black crispy bits around the edges, and it's curled up and it's doing all the things it should do. If you smother that, it's just nothing. I mean, you think about barbecued prawns compared to steamed prawns. I mean, there's not even a comparison. That's exactly what you're doing to your toppings. So do not sprinkle cheese over the top. And everyone does it. And I've known so many people who, no, cheese goes on last. They put all the toppings on the cheese and they just, oh. Number one, it looks crap. And number two, it tastes, it's not even close to tasting as good. I know there are going to be people who disagree with me, and I don't care. I'm very opinionated about pizza. I warned you at the start of the thing. And that's my big opinion. That is very nearly done. It's actually great because that base is not quite done, which is fine. I'll just take the baduri lid off and sit it down and wait for the rest of it to cook. Alrighty, that is ready to come off. I've added a little bit of basil at the last minute, which if I'm honest, it's mainly for the photo. Usually add it once it's come off, but it's only been on there for a minute and a half. Shit, it's got all brittle. Oh, this has a much better base. It's a little bit thicker, so it's got a bit more rigidity. Oh, listen to that crunch through the base. That's more like it. See, first one, always hard. Second one, third one, fourth one, nailing it. Let's have a look at the base. Okay, hold on. Yeah, that looks perfect to me. Brown, crispy. See how it's stiff? It's holding its shape. It's really hot. Whew. So, nice and stiff. That's the way to do it. If you have a big camp oven, a small camp oven, do that. Do that all day, every day. That's the best. Oh, a bit of chili. Oh, I can really taste the honey in this one. Oh, how good is that? Okay. If you like that, carry on to the next video. If you didn't like it, hit the thumbs down button twice. Subscribe if you want to. You do you. See you in the next one. Cheers. Oh, so many leftovers. I'm so thirsty.